human experimentation, the 7 deadly sins, government cover-up, and a microwave? These are all things we're going to be discussing today in the full Escape from Tarkov Iceberg. Bear versus Usex. Bears are a private military company who were created by the Russian government to fight against the illegal activities of the terror group. They're all ex-special forces and they're all from former Soviet countries. So their main job was to fight the Usex and to bring an end to the illegal activities Terror Group was doing, along with finding any evidence on Terror Group that they could. They fight in a bunch of other places, including Iran, Kazakhstan, and Thailand. The Usex are another PMC group. They came from 2 different companies that merged together. It's Kernasec and SafeC. The main job of the Usex for when they were working with Terror Group was to destroy any evidence that they could get their hands on and make sure the Bears didn't get their hands on any evidence of illegitimate activities. Terror Group is not the only company that the Usex work for, and they are actually all over the world and currently have 7,500 contractors working for them. All maps are connected. This one's pretty simple, so it's just pointing out that all the maps are connected. There are sections in the map where you can see other sections, or parts where you can just go from one to the other. You have transit, but before you had the transit, you had things like path to shoreline and other stuff like that, or on shoreline, path to lighthouse. So yes, all maps are connected. China ban. A lot of players just really wanted China to have a closed off servers because a majority of the cheaters do come from China, and it's just a really big issue, and they wanted them to have closed servers where they could only play with each other because it would remove like 90% of the cheaters. Scavs are civilians. So again, this is like a really simple one. When all the bad stuff started happening in Tarkov with Terror Group and everything like that, everyone left, or everyone that could leave left. A bunch of people stayed, including like gangsters and thugs and mob bosses and stuff, but a lot of the scavs that stayed were civilians that just could not make it out. For whatever reason that happened, I don't know, but a lot of them were just civilians who are now just trying to survive. Traders are in the city. This is an older iceberg, so I'm not sure what information the guy had access to, but yes, all the traders are in the city of Tarkov. Starting off with Propwar, he's in the Verknai urban settlement. It's on the shore somewhere, so it could be next to shoreline or lighthouse or anywhere you can really see the water, but that's really up to guess. Therapist is in the city, and as of right now, that is streets. Fence is never in one place for long, he is constantly moving. Skier is in customs. Peacekeeper is at the port district. Mechanic is also in customs. Ragman's in the central market. That might be in streets. I'm not really sure. Jaeger is in the Priozerk's nature district. I'm guessing that's on woods because that's the only area that really is nature. And Ref is at the airport. So yes, they are all in Tarkov. Usex killed Terror Group employees. Yeah, so in Tarkov Raid Episode 3, you see the Usex murdering Terror Group employees on the little hand recorder that the Bears are watching. I believe this was an attempt to minimize the witnesses of what was actually going on at Terror Group. Terror Group experiments on people. So in the quest Terror Group, Peacekeeper gives us the mission of going and finding a flash drive that Sanitar had left in his office. On this flash drive, after we give it to Peacekeeper, he tells us that Sanitar was committing unethical experiments on people. So you can actually even find the room where the people were experimented on. In labs, it's Black Room. That's why there's syringes all over the place, and that's why there's a bed in the center in a glass cube. Raiders are PMCs gone bad. In the game's description of Raiders, it lists them as a shady group of armed people who, according to rumors, consist of former PMC operators and local residents. They possess great combat and tactical skills. So Raiders are not just formerly PMCs, but also are made up of former residents of Tarkov that have more training than a regular scav. The former PMCs, now Raiders, probably realized they could make more money scavenging and stealing than they were actually making from their employer. Streamers control the meta. So people that play the game so much that they decide to stream it are usually pretty good at the game. They're pretty knowledgeable of the weapons and equipment that you have access to. So they're usually running the best of whatever is available. So whether that's damage, ergo, or recoil, or all three. Most people are pretty impressionable, so if they see their favorite streamer running the meta or what's currently best, they're going to be like, I want to run that because I want to get kills like this guy does. So they're all going to start running that exact same gun, along with whatever gear the streamer wears as well, so armor and stuff like that as well. UN doesn't care. So Peacekeeper gives you a mission where the entire point of it is to dress up like a UN employee and go around killing scavs so it looks like the UN is actually doing its job. But instead of addressing the fact that the UN is actually not doing its job, he has you do it so he doesn't lose his funding. Here's a quote from Peacekeeper. "We are one step away from losing financing, which, my friend, is the opposite of profitable for us. So we need to convince the public that the helmets are actually doing what they are supposed to do." So even if the actual UN cares, the guy who's leading the UN soldiers that are actually in Tarkov does not. Scavs use aimbot. Instead of BSG coding in the scavs to have a percentage to hit, a percentage not to hit, how to aim, stuff like that, they just went online and bought an aimbot and just gave it to the scavs. If you played Tarkov in I think it was 2018, 2019, the scavs used to be John Wick and would head eyes you from 300 meters away with a shotgun. And it pissed a lot of people off. Now the scavs wear special needs helmets though, so it's all good. Russian victimization propaganda. BSG is a Russian-funded program to build sympathy for Russia. So this theory banks off the fact that Terror Group uses American PMCs as their own private military. And it paints the Bears, or the Russians, as people who are just trying to fight and defend their home. Missing Augmentin pills. The Augmentin icon is an entire bottle, yet when you take it, you get one pill and then throw it away. So is there only one pill in all the bottles? Or did somebody go around Tarkov and take out all the pills except one in every single bottle? Streamer lobbies. BSG gives streamers better lobbies that have better loot so the game looks more fun to get more people to buy it. Hot rod glitched texture. So for some time when you pulled out a hot rod, you would see a texture that is no longer in the game that just looked like the Red Bull can. And it was obviously just a placeholder that they forgot to take out before releasing the game. Escape from Tarkov is in the same universe as Stalker. The creators of Tarkov have said multiple different times that Tarkov is heavily inspired by Stalker. Terror Group very well could have continued their experiments and eventually caused the second disaster that gave us the anomalies in Stalker. BSG uses hacks in its own game. So in the game's code, and even the developers have showed it, there's an item called the Dev Mask. Now what the Dev Mask does is it makes you completely immune to bullets, but it doesn't make you immune to grenades. Now is this hacking? No. But it is really weird that instead of just giving themselves access to a god mode, they made a specific article of clothing that would kind of give them god mode. And before you're like, oh, well, they didn't want to put god mode in the code. People have gotten access to the Dev Mask. There are cheaters using it now. If you go on, especially on PvE Tarkov, if you go on PvE Tarkov and you get lucky, on the fence market, you can just find the Dev Mask sometimes. It's insane. So why put that in the game? Scav bosses are former player-controlled scavs. So when a player scav goes MIA, instead of dying or actually disappearing, they eventually would go on to become the scav boss, and they were able to harness the skills they had from when they were a player. Streamer loot. So streamer loot like the Rat Cola, the Vibin Sneaker, and the Shroud Mask show that these people exist in some form in the Tarkov universe. Now, are they streamers in the Tarkov universe? Are they celebrities? Who knows? How did they get famous? We don't know. Streamers paid directly to hype the game. So during Tarkov's first Twitch event, a lot of big streamers were playing it, and people have came to an idea that BSG paid a lot of these streamers to play. And that's not really far out of the realm of possibility. That happens all the time. Games are constantly paying and doing promotional streams with streamers. It's not a very uncommon practice. AI scavs participate in the flea market. If an AI scav manages to actually exfil, they would then be able to sell and buy things off the flea market. This would explain why so many items on the flea market are poorly priced and are garbage. Meta is controlled by adaptive AI. BSG has an adaptive AI that reads the weapon statistics and will nerf/buff them depending on what information is given. The Tarkov situation is actually a Terror Group experiment. Terror Group orchestrated the entire collapse of Tarkov so they could test their combat syringes in an active war zone. So after getting as much information as they could inside of labs in a controlled environment, they decided what was the next best thing. It was to get field testing of their combat stims, and what better testing than an environment that you can completely monitor. That would explain why everyone and their mom has stims on them when you kill them. You can't go a raid without finding stims. I think stims, in a sense, are probably one of the most common loot groups. You find stims all over the place, constantly. They are everywhere. Now, why are they everywhere? Because they want you to use them. The microwave's importance. So this was a meme in the community. Pestily was asked to show off his microwave, and he did an entire raid on Interchange where he played with his keyboard on top of the microwave. Nikita even referenced it during a dev livestream.
Some Hitler speeches and stuff. Like, this is... Here you go, microwave. You're happy? You're happy?
BSG knows the game is broken and intends to keep it that way. They wait to fix issues until they have a major update instead of just fixing stuff when it comes up. In this, I will go more into detail on a later theory down the iceberg. UN secretly funds the Usex/Bears. So again, bringing this back to Peacekeeper, he is basically our UN. He's the only contact we have with it. And he is constantly paying both sides to do tasks, so he is funding both sides. BSG makes hacks. Another theory that BSG, since they have access to all the code in the game, makes hacks and resells them out to players so they can make more money. Because in theory, you can do this in endless loop. You make a cheat, you sell it, you ban the cheater, he makes a new account, buys the cheat again, or buys a different cheat that BSG made, and the cycle continues and repeats. And in doing so, in banning all these cheaters, it can show you that, oh, BSG actually does care about the cheater problem. Look how many cheaters they're banning, when in actuality, they're the ones making all the cheaters. No pre-placed dead bodies. The lootable corpses that you find that are always there in Tarkov are actually PMCs and Scavs that died before the raid even started. Terror Group used Health Resort to experiment on people. So you can find hospital beds all over the building, and it's one of the places Santar spawns at. As we know about Santar, he loves experimenting on people. Cultists will never be implemented. So this iceberg was released about a year before the cultists were added. The theory was from the author that BSG would use the cultists as a boogeyman and never actually release them into the game and just use them as a way to scare the players. Hitboxes made to detect hackers. So this one is less of a theory and more just a recommendation from the author that BSG should take the hitboxes of the head eyes and put them somewhere else on the body, somewhere somebody would never shoot. And this could be a way of knowing that someone was a hacker. Nikita doesn't work for Battlestate Games. Nikita was actually a content creator that BSG just really liked, and they brought him on the team, whether that's for entertainment or as a spokesperson or as a scapegoat for their shitty ideas. AI controls the flea market. So an AI floods and drains the market of items that are not being sold at a reasonable price, and also sets a reasonable price for items. That's why if you try to sell a bar of soap for like 3.5 mil, you'll get a tax of 1.5 mil. BSG owned by KGB. Since BSG is a Russian company, that they actually have ties to the government, and that's why they have access to all the gear and guns that they do. China never got banned. Yes, China never got banned. Now, they're region locked, but BSG knows that VPNs exist and that people use VPNs from China, but it doesn't affect them, so they don't really care. Scav bosses are funded by the UN. So since the Scav bosses are aggressive towards both factions and Scavs, depending on your level, it's a theory that the UN pays them to clear out both factions to resolve the conflict sooner. Tarkov is based on real events. So the devs are actually trying to spread awareness of an event that's currently happening in Tarkov, and they're using the game to do that. But due to Russia's high censorship, they have to tread very lightly and not expose too much at once. So since it's so dangerous to talk out against the government in Russia, they have to be really careful about what they say and how they say it. No RNG. In every single raid, the loot is pre-placed. So someone actively goes into the raid and places all the loot for you before every single raid starts. Nikita Master Key. Nikita has a key that can open every single door inside of Tarkov. Cultists were in the game all along. So cultists were actually in the game since the very beginning, but they didn't allow themselves to be seen until recently. Terror Group funds placement of loot. So Terror Group actually pays people to place loot around Tarkov for you to find. This is so that they can study your behavior. So this might explain places like Giving Tree, or why sometimes stashes aren't in a place that they were before. Maybe the person they paid didn't have time, or they died before they were actually able to place the loot. This would tie back into the theory that Terror Group's actually watching and observing everything, so they place loot like syringes and other items like guns and weapons, food and things like that, so they can have more research and more studying to do. So now we are about to start getting into some of the really weird stuff. Playing in past lobbies. So you will play through a lobby and you will take a predetermined route. And through that route, you will coincidentally, every single time, miss a future and past version of yourself that's playing in the same lobby that's taking a different path as you. But since they're taking a different path, it's predetermined that you two will never meet. So in those raids where you don't hear a single thing, you don't hear a shot, you don't see another person, it's completely possible that you were in a raid completely full of future and past versions of yourself that you will never see. BSG slave workers. Before the big updates, the BSG employees are pretty much whipped into shape and just work hard hours to try to get out the update. But if this post by Nikita is anything to go off of, the slaves seem like they are treated pretty well. Labs is hell. Due to how many cheaters, meta slaves, sweats, and streamers play on labs, it's a punishment. But just like hell, labs is a choice. Scav bosses are funded by Terror Group. So Sturman and his boys actually could be working or could have worked for Terror Group. One piece of evidence is the fact that you can find Terror Group cards in Sturman's SUVs. Tagil is constantly found with L1 injectors, so either Terror Group is using him as an experiment to see how the injectors infect him, or they're using him as a way to eliminate us, or both. Killa uses a Terror Group safe room in the parking garage on Interchange. So there's three possibilities. He either found this room on accident, killed someone for the information, or Terror Group gave him access to the room so he can better carry out his responsibilities of killing Scavs and PMCs. The goons are former Usex, so they definitely used to work for Terror Group, but whether they do now, that's up for debate since they do kill a lot of Usex. So in the Chronicles of Rise, Season 2, Chapter 3, you can actually see that Sanitar is hanging around with Gluhar, Kaban, and Kalante, and we know that Sanitar was a Terror Group employee. So it wouldn't be out of the realm possibility that the other three have connections to Terror Group, since Sanitar definitely does. Srirachi is the lapdog of Lightkeeper, and Lightkeeper hates Gluhar since Gluhar constantly works against him. But Lightkeeper does have higher-ups that he calls they, and it is speculated in the community that these higher-ups are Terror Group higher-ups, or Terror Group elites. I believe Partisan has no connection whatsoever to Terror Group. He does not interact with any other Scav bosses or traitors besides Jaeger. He seems to only go after those who he believes are honorless. The Cultist Priest. The cultists may be former volunteers or forced test subjects. The backing I have to this is that the fact that they use stimulants to lower their body temperature so they can't be seen on thermals. Srirachi also has two cultist guards that follow him, so another tie to Terror Group. The bosses are the deadly sins. Rashala is Greed. He is called the Deal Maker and has a golden gun. Killa's wrath with 0 followers, and he is aggressive towards Scavs and PMCs. Gluhar is pride. With his lack of mask, he seems to want to show off his face and body. Sanitar is lust. He is completely addicted to his stimulants. Sturman is sloth. All he does is sit around lumberyard and he does not move. Kaban is gluttony. Yeah. Tagilla is envy. Jaeger says, and I quote, "He always tried to follow in his brother's steps, wanted to surpass him in everything. They say he even borrowed the helmet idea from his brother." Now, obviously, this was made before a few of the bosses were added, so not everyone's here. No AI Scav theory. There is no such thing as an AI Scav. Every single Scav in-game is controlled by a player, but most of us suck, so they just call us bots. 13th map. So as of right now, we have 12 maps in the game. This is including Terminal, even though it's not officially in yet. Streets is about to be split into 2 maps, and that will give us 13. So that will be the 13 maps. UN kills all those who escape from Tarkov to stop rumors/outrage. The UN has set up roadblocks all around Tarkov, and if you're able to get around the roadblock, you get shot by a sniper. These are UN's ways of making sure no one leaves. Climbable ladders. This is another joke about how you find ladders all over the place in Tarkov, yet you are not able to climb any of them. But what if there is a ladder you can climb that just has not been found yet? Cultists worship streamers via streamer items. Since the cultist warriors do wear the Pestley mask, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they do worship the streamers by wearing their loot. This could be the reason why streamers always find such amazing loot in the cultist marked rooms. The cultists just sacrifice the best stuff to them. Scavs are conscious. All the Scavs are conscious, and the AI thinks it's alive. I mean, does this not sound like a man that's actually dying? Death sounds are authentic. BSG actually took people and unalived them so they could record the audio, or they went onto iFunny Collective and got them from there. Flea Market AI went rogue and BSG is trying to reclaim it. Even AI hates taxes. The taxes on the flea market are so outrageous the AI got mad and decided it was going to charge extreme amounts when you tried to list an item. Tarkov is purgatory for dead soldiers. The player character has been cursed to spawn, die, and repeat for all eternity. This would explain why even after death we come right back like nothing happened and have access to everything in our hideout still. Maybe the player character did something bad in his past life, and him, along with thousands of other soldiers, are forced to fight for all eternity. Dog tags are souls. Dog tags are not only for seeing the information on a fallen enemy/friend, but they are actually our souls. One thing that I actually think backs this theory is in your hideout you can make the Hall of Fame, and in the Hall of Fame, if you take the enemy's dog tags and put them in it, it'll give you a buff. This buff gives you extra combat experience. So you are actually using your enemy's souls to become a stronger warrior. This is why the higher level the dog tags are, the higher percentage you get. Tarkov gathers info on how different countries would respond to a Russian invasion. Tarkov is simulating how people would react in different urban environments and things like that to close quarter combat and other things like that. It also takes into consideration how people would find the quickest routes and how they would move around. Predetermined raids. So this kind of ties back into playing in past lobbies. The second you make a BSG account, every raid you will ever do has already been mapped out for you, and no matter what, it will always be the same. So no matter what, if you played, let's say, 5 raids in a row, they would all turn out the same. Now, if we went back in time and you did all those 5 raids, but you put a month between each raid, every single raid would have still turned out the exact same no matter what. Empty factory theory. So similar to the dead internet theory, everything in factory is made up by an AI. There's no real players in factory. You are completely alone. EFT is training for a combat AI. BSG is using an ultra-realistic FPS military shooter to train a combat AI. It'll train it how to move around certain environments and how to invade and engage into those fights. You can actually escape Tarkov. When the final version of the game does come out, the final quest will be to escape from Tarkov, or that'll be the reward for completing the final quest. Now, I have a couple theories on this and how it would be done. If I had to guess, there are two people that'll give you this quest. It'll either be Peacekeeper or Lightkeeper. I think Peacekeeper will do it since he does have connections to the UN. He could let you out at the roadblocks, tell the snipers not to shoot you, and you would just go on about your way. Or if it's Lightkeeper, he has ways of getting things in and out of Tarkov. He could very well get us out. The game is actually finished. They just bait purchase waves with updates. So this is the second part of BSG knows the game is broken and intends to keep it that way. The game came out 8.5 years ago and is still in beta. The game's done. What BSG does is they release small updates every once in a while to keep the audience engaged. This also attracts new players as well. And what this does is it creates the illusion of ongoing development. And that is the full Tarkov Iceberg. This series is completely finished now, and it was a blast to work on. If some of you have seen this before, it's because this entire video was originally broken down into 5 parts. I decided to put them all together, so in case somebody wanted to watch all of them, they wouldn't have to watch a bunch of intros and outros. The next video will most likely be a part 2 of the Rust Iceberg, and if you haven't seen part 1, you can check that out right here. But if you're into weird stuff, you can check out one of my other videos about some strange stories about cryptids out of the book Weird Florida. Both of those videos will be in the description as well. And that's pretty much everything. Thank you all so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And if you have any ideas or things you want to see me cover, leave a comment down below. I read every single comment, so yours will definitely be seen. And if it's something cool that I find interesting, I will most likely make a video about it. Anyways, please subscribe. Have an excellent rest of your day, and God bless.